Well, hello, folks. Welcome once again to an edition of FlockTalk here from your pastor here at the Independence Reformed Bible Church. The question of, oh, by the way, yes, you'll notice we've made an attempt here to do a better job with our lighting and our sound. So hopefully this will come off a lot better than what we've been able to do before. We've added some lighting, and you can see this microphone as well. So, very quickly, the question of dowry has come up. In other words, what does the Bible have to say about dowries? We're talking about money paid to the family of the groom or the groom by the family of the bride. We want to make a distinction between that and a bride price. A bride price is very biblical. A dowry is not. And let's make a distinction, first of all, between the two. You heard me say that a dowry is what is paid to the man by the family, or the groom, I should say, by the family of the bride. And I think it's a very demeaning thing, personally. It's like, take this woman, and we know she doesn't have very much value. So here's a bunch of money to make up for your loss, essentially. We know this woman's going to cost you money. She's not going to add anything to you or to anything. Brings no value. But here's a bunch of money. Please take her off of our hands, which seems like a horrible thing. And it is a horrible thing. I want to make a distinction between that and bride price. And by the way, just so you know, I'm not making this idea up, from the reliable source, Wikipedia. A dowry is a payment such as property or money paid by the bride's family to the groom or his family at the time of marriage. So again, please take this woman off our hands. And if you're not really motivated to marry her, which seems crazy, but we're going to give you this extra incentive to take this woman, our daughter. Here's some money. Now, please take her if we give you enough money. I want to contrast that, however, with the idea of the bride price. Now, here's the thing about the bride price. We first see this in Genesis chapter 24 and verse 53, where we see Abraham, I should say, by this time, Abraham's servant giving money to both Rebekah and ultimately to Rebekah's family for the value of taking Rebekah from them to Abraham's household. And we know that Rebekah had value. She worked, she watered camels and so forth. She had a value to that household. And so the first thing I want to really make clear is this. Sometimes dowry and bride price are used interchangeably, and sometimes people will make fun of the idea, oh, well, the dowry's in the Bible, and we know that's antiquated and a crazy idea. Well, whenever you're in a discussion about this, please make a distinction between a dowry and a bride price. So let's talk a little bit about that bride price. Tim Terrell, writing in Chalcedon back in 2002, says this. He says, among the valuable traditions of the people of God recorded for us in the Old Testament is the bride price, sometimes called a dowry. Again, we don't want to mix these two up. Sometimes it is called a dowry, but in this discussion, I want to always make a distinction between a dowry, the idea of that is being paid by the bride's family to the groom, and a bride price, which is paid by the groom to the bride's family. In other words, what the groom is saying is, this young lady that I'm getting as a bride is extremely valuable, and I am going to trade some money, a bride price, for the hand of this young lady in marriage. Now, why? Why is this? Terrell goes on to say, this is a large transfer of wealth from the groom to the new father-in-law before marriage. We will see a bride price is best understood not as payment for the transfer of a human being, but as a way to protect the bride as she leaves her father's household. It is present in many Old Testament passages. We mentioned, for example, Genesis 24 and 24 verse 53. Now, we also have another problem with the bride price and not paying the bride price when it comes to our guy Laban. Now, when Jacob came to Laban, he had nothing really, but he did have one thing. He was able to work. So Laban, as a bride price, if you will, squeezes 14 years of labor out of Jacob for the hand of his two daughters, only one of which was wanted. Now, here's the thing about that. What a godly father of a bride would do is he would take that money, perhaps invest it wisely, carefully, or just hold on to it, but probably would invest it. And it became part of the wealth of the family. In other words, if the wife was faithful to her husband, this became property for the wife, for the children of the marriage, if the father of the bride was a godly man. And in this way, you can kind of see how, if this was done generation after generation, you could see how this family would accumulate quite a lot of wealth. And without going into this too deeply, many of you know I believe that it's the family that is allowed to get wealthy. We do not see the state allowed to get wealthy. We see prohibitions against that in the book of Deuteronomy, for example, talking about the king multiplying silver to himself, gold to himself, as it says. And I'm not sure if it says gold or silver, but not allowed to multiply horses to himself, not allowed to multiply wives to himself. And we never see the church getting wealthy as a good thing necessarily. But we have multiple passages in the scriptures talking about the family getting wealthy and the extended family getting wealthy as a good thing. And of course, the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, were wealthy men, as was Job, for example. Many of the godly men in the Old Testament were wealthy as well. So, but of course, we're against that now. We want to attack the wealth of the family and then lay up the wealth of the family for the state. And in the case of Rome and even some Protestant circles, church is getting extremely wealthy. I want you to hear what Rachel and Leah say to Jacob. They say this in Genesis chapter 31. This is just a few chapters after Genesis 24, where Rebekah is brought to Isaac. Then Rachel, this is what Genesis 31, 14 through 16 says this. Then Rachel and Leah answered and said unto Jacob, is there still any portion or inheritance for us in our father's house? Are we not considered strangers by him? For he has sold us and also completely consumed our money. For all these riches which God has taken from our father are really ours and our children's. Now then, whatever God has said to you, do it. And what's happening here, without getting into it too deeply, Rachel and Leah agreed about the only time the two of them probably ever agreed on anything, especially after they became wives of Jacob. But they agreed that their father had not protected them. Their father had used the bride price, in this case it was labor from Jacob, and spent it on himself and did not hold what he could have used that money. He could have used the labor that Jacob had given him, turned that into cash or money, if you will, gold, silver, for his daughters, and he didn't. He spent that on himself and what he wanted to do, and they're bitter about it, because they says he has sold us and also completely consumed our money. So the bride price was not the money for the father of the bride. The bride price was money that was supposed to be held for the protection, just in case the groom, after he became a husband, abandoned the wife and perhaps the children. And now the wife, though, has money now that the groom has paid to fall back on. Or maybe something could happen to him. Perhaps he could get hurt or die. And the bride, the wife at this point, would have money to fall back on. So you can see this is just a good idea all around. It would be so much better if young men, and the bride price, people have different amounts of money for it. It appears to be 50 shekels. that looks, best I can tell from what I can research, looks to be about 2 to 3 years of worth of labor. In any case, knowing that a woman is so valuable that you're going to work and give to her family 2 to 3 years worth of your income, you're not going to, you have a further investment in this young lady. This is one of the great problems with intimate relations before marriage, because once a young man has that, the value of the woman just goes way down. But if he has not had relations with her yet, it's very important to a young man, and for a young man to be able to work and pay the family of the bride this kind of money actually increases her value. So that's my point. A bride price increases the value of the bride. The dowry decreases the value of the bride. If you want to know more, I would suggest you study Genesis chapter 24 and Genesis chapter 31, where the bride price is seen as obviously works out well, the right way in Genesis chapter 24. And because Laban is not a good guy, it works out poorly in Genesis chapter 31. All right, thank you for being with us for this particular Flock Talk, and catch you on the next one.